Very good afternoon, friends, and thank you very much for joining us. The topic for today's discussion is portfolio management services. So, today we are going to be discussing two extremely important perspectives as far as equity investing is concerned. Uh, Investing in quality, investing in leaders, and the portfolio management approach to equity investing with Nippon High Conviction Equity Portfolio. And to do that, we have two industry stalwarts from Nippon AMC, Mr. Shehzad Medan and Mr. Varun Goel. Shehzad Medan heads the PMS business for Nippon, and Varun Goel is the head of equity. Thank you, Mr. Shehzad and Varun. It's always a pleasure to have you with us, and it's over to you, gentlemen. Now.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you so much to HDFC Securities for giving us this opportunity to be before you. Thank you, Ganesh, for this very kind introduction. And friends, thank you so much for logging in. Wonderful to have all of you. I trust you are all safe and good. So just without much ado, to just start about what we are talking about. We are talking about the two topics which Ganesh mentioned. And first, let me talk about what we're doing, which is our high conviction equity portfolio. So what is the high conviction equity portfolio? As the name suggests, it is a corporate leaders fund. Effectively, what we are trying to do is, if you could go to just page 3, we are talking about those funds, those companies. We are creating an all-weather portfolio, a portfolio which is a core portion of an investor's equity allocation. So this is something which should be core portion. It's not thematic. It is something which is a evergreen portfolio, which is absolutely which is what we call the high conviction. It is our top high conviction ideas. It is those we believe those. What are we trying to do? We are trying to select those companies which are dominant in their respective position. So those companies, say, which are either the top 5 in India or top 10 in the world, right? So companies which are that dominant or are very likely to become global leaders shortly. So this is something which we're doing clearly. Very very strong companies which can deliver have delivered and can deliver over a period of time. One of the things, and we'll talk about quality, and Varun will talk more about it, is the fact that we're looking at those companies which, we talk about a must five in a moment, which have a high return ratios, which are which have grown very rapidly, which have high profitability, which have high return ratios, which is ROE, ROC, and low debt. And we'll talk all about it in this thing. We believe that those companies who established leadership in generally highly competitive market like India are very well placed to be competitive globally. So this is the sort of companies which we're trying to do, and this is across capitalization. So across large, mid, and small. What we're trying to do, because there are niches. If you're in the auto industry, if you're in the banking industry and you're a leader, those are large industries. If you are, however, in some of the smaller industries, you could still be a very large player by global standards, but in a smaller niche. So there are opportunities like this across large, mid, and small. One very important thing, so this is precisely what we're trying to do, is pick those stocks which are leaders and which we believe will continue to deliver very well. If we go to slide 2, Naveen, slide 2, which very briefly I will only talk about what we call our must 5 investment approach. Now, must 5 investment approach is something which we use across all our portfolios. You may be aware that we manage equity portfolios across PMS, across AIF, and we are among the larger manufacturers, managers in this space. We follow something which is called a must 5 investment approach, and the must 5 investment approach is mentioned below. We are looking at those segments which have business potential. So there's a good growth opportunity. There have been growth in the past, and we believe that there will likely to be growth in the future. And those companies within that which have a sustainable competitive advantage, we'd like to see the companies have delivered in the past. So past is like your report card. If you have delivered in the past, it is a fair possibility that you can deliver in the future, right? So that's something which those who have grown, top line, grown revenue, grown EBITDA, grown earnings over a period of time, a good margin profile, high return on equity, and we're very focused on one more thing, low debt equity. Now, one of the things, and I'll leave Varun to talk to you about, is across all our portfolios, you look at it, we have focused on those companies which have very low debt equity. In fact, it is about 0.19 equity of our portfolio, and there are a lot of benefits which we will talk about in a few minutes, right? We very focused and promoting, we would like to see those companies where the promoter has significant stake and it is not pledged, because we've seen various mishaps happen out there. So this is the background. We have something which is called a must five investment by framework. This framework runs across all our portfolios, PMS, AIF, all our equity portfolios, and we believe this has stood us in good stead. When you see the numbers, which you will see later, and we'll talk about that later, on the upside as well as on the downside, we believe that this investment approach has held us in very good stead. With this, I'll hand it over to Varun. Is our fund manager, and he has done the wonderful job. You see, we will see those numbers in a few minutes. You would see that, and he will talk to you more about our investment approach, and we'll show you the portfolio and the earnings growth and so on for a lot of our stocks. Varun, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. We will talk about the high conviction equity portfolio. As Shehzad mentioned, this is a portfolio where we pick up the best companies in the Indian corporate world. The hypothesis or the investment basis is very simple. The top 5 companies in India, their own field of operations, or top 10 in the world. Right. So whichever company is ranked amongst top 5 in India in its sector, or top 10 in the world. So we have seen a lot of companies, since India is a very large market. Those companies which typically do well in India have the potential to do well across the world. And we have seen a lot of sectors, sometimes they are small and mid-cap companies, but they occupy a niche, where they are doing very well. So all these companies we typically have seen a lot of growth in revenue and profitability. They have seen very good ROCs and ROEs. And we believe that they generate a lot of cash flows, which gives them the ability to keep on reinvesting and grow their business in a capital efficient manner. So this is broadly very, very simple thesis of this portfolio, and all stocks which are there in the portfolio demonstrate leadership in some form or the other. So can we go to the next slide, Naveen? Yeah. So these are some of the ways in which leadership can be demonstrated. So some companies have a phenomenal brand. It's the brand which makes them a winner. Some companies are very good at innovation. So we see companies coming up with new products, new services. Some of them are great in technology. So this is an era of technology. A lot of companies we see, if they have cutting edge technology, they're able to beat their competitors. And then there is, of course, leadership because of size, right? So some companies become so large in size that they're able to manufacture at a very, very low cost, right? So then some companies demonstrate leadership through niche. So there are a lot of companies, for instance, in chemical space, India has a big niche. So while the companies in India are all in the mid-cap space, but in their respective field of operations, in the respective chemistry skills, they are number 1, number 2, number 3 globally. And that's what makes them extremely efficient producer of products and services. And then, of course, we know there is leadership through cost. A lot of companies in India compete on cost. So for instance, a lot of automotive companies in India compete on being the lowest cost producer, and they are able to demonstrate leadership across the world. What we do is that we do this qualitative screening in terms of what companies are demonstrating leadership. Then we look at whether their ROCs and ROEs are more than 15%, and then we make a broad universe from which the portfolio is finally constructed. Can we go to the next slide, Naveen? Yeah. So what we have seen is that companies, we did a study that what is the kind of growth that these companies see. The companies which qualify the leadership criteria, we've seen in the last 10 years they deliver a 19% profit growth as compared to 6-7% profit growth in Nifty, and they've also compounded at 20% compared to around 5% for Nifty companies. And their last 10-year average ROE is 21% compared to around 16% for Nifty companies. So basically what we're saying is that on all parameters, whether it's market returns, whether it's profit growth, or its ROE, we have seen these companies continuously do better than the broader markets. So based on that, we have arrived at a portfolio of companies which I'd like to share with you. Can we go to the next slide, Naveen? Yeah. So this is a core portfolio proposition. Yeah. Can we stay here? Can we stay here? Yeah. This is the full portfolio that we have. It's a good mix of mid-cap and large-cap ideas. So this portfolio is, we believe, a very stable proposition with 60-70% in large-cap names and around 30 to 40% is in the mid and small-cap category. What that leads to is that it gives portfolio a very good balance of stability with growth. So we've seen that earlier, in 2016-17, there was a mid-cap boom. and a lot of multi-cap portfolios actually converted into mid-cap portfolios. And when the tide turned and when the mid-cap sector saw a big correction, a lot of multi-cap portfolios actually underperformed. To avoid those kind of situations, we ensure that the portfolio is always 60% plus invested in large cap names, and then the remaining 30-40% is put in mid and small cap. So which ensures that the stability of these companies or the stability of the portfolio is always there. So as you can see, this portfolio has some of the largest and the best companies in India like HDFC Bank, we have Reliance Industries, we have Dr. Reddy's Labs. All these companies are amongst top 5 players in India in their own respective categories. And then we have some great mid-cap names which are also leaders. So for instance, Navin Fluorine is one of the leader companies in the area of refrigerant gases and contract manufacturing of specialty chemicals. Then we have Info Edge company, India's largest digital services player. We have companies like Sudarshan Chemical again, which is one of the leading, the top 3 companies in dyes and pigments. We have AI Engineering, which is the second largest company in the world for ferrochrome alloys. So there is a good mix of small and mid-cap names along with large-cap names. If you see the returns, Naveen, can we go to the slide above? We'll just take you through the returns. So what we see in this portfolio is that you take last 3 months the portfolio has done around 10% return. Last 1 year the portfolio has delivered around 10.5% return compared to around 0% return for Nifty 500, which is the benchmark. So which is a good outperformance of more than 10%. If you see on a 2-year basis also, the portfolio has delivered positive return of 5.3% versus minus 3.2. So again, around 8.5% outperformance. If you look at on a 5-year basis, the portfolio has delivered a 7% return. And then if you see on a since inception basis also, the portfolio has delivered a fairly healthy 15% return as compared to 9.6% return in benchmark. So we have been ahead of the market by around 6%. And our endeavor continuously is that if we can add 5, 6, 7% alpha compared to the benchmark, we believe we would have added the right value to our investors. I think the important thing is that the portfolio has done well both on upward trending markets and in the downward trending markets. If you see, last 6 months have been pretty volatile because of COVID, and we have seen a lot of wealth getting eroded in these times. Despite that, the portfolio has managed to deliver a 10% plus return in the last 1 year, which shows the resilience of the portfolio in a very, very tough macroeconomic environment. And we believe that because of the quality of the companies which are there in the portfolio, and I think Shehzad alluded to the must-5 investment framework, which has helped us maintain companies with very, very high quality of promoters, very, very high quality of businesses. If you see, we are very happy to share that we never owned any of these problematic NBFCs or private sector banks which have gone bust in the last 2-3 years. We never owned some of those media companies which have seen promoter pledge issues. So we have, thanks to our must-5 framework, avoided a lot of those controversial names, which has ensured that even in tough times, the portfolio has kind of held on. Right. So I think the important thing to keep in mind is that if you buy a good quality stock, you stay invested in it and let it compound for a period of 3 to 5 years. In this portfolio, what we do is we buy 20 to 25 stock ideas and we let them play, let it compound for 3 to 5 years. We believe each of these companies can deliver a 15 to 20% earnings growth on a CAGR basis, and that is what would eventually result in very good compounding in terms of stock prices also. So we will just take you through the earnings growth or the profit growth of these companies. Naveen, can you go to this slide? Yeah, the one below. Yeah. So if you see this is the full portfolio, and I'll just help you read through all this. So if you see last year in FY20, if you see what we have given is for every company that we own in the portfolio, we have given the FY20 profit and we have compared that with FY19 profit. And what you see in the last column is the growth in profit in FY20. So for instance, HDFC Bank had 22% profit growth. Navin Fluorine had 170% profit growth in the last 1 year. Similarly, all the companies, earnings are there. And at the aggregate portfolio level, the portfolio delivered a 32% profit growth. Now, if you compare it with Nifty, Nifty companies delivered a 0% profit growth in FY20, right? 0%. And that is despite a 10%, despite a big tax cut that the government of India announced in the middle of the year. Despite that, we have seen very, very tough times. In fact, if you see at the PBT level, Nifty companies are actually delivered negative growth. If you compare it to our portfolio, 0 versus what we have is 32%. So it's a 30% plus outperformance in earnings and that is the reason why you see the portfolio also outperforming the benchmark by more than 10% in the last 1 year, because our companies have been showing a lot of resilience in tough times. If you see last quarter also, quarter 4 FY20, the portfolio delivered a 5% earnings growth. This was compared to minus 12% earnings growth for Nifty companies. So again, we have seen a very significant outperformance in earnings growth for our portfolio as compared to what we've seen in the market. So our hypothesis remains the same, that if we invest in companies which can deliver 15 to 20% earnings growth over a period of 3 to 5 years on a compounding basis, sooner or later the markets will reward them in terms of good returns, and that is the kind of companies that we like to invest in. Also, very importantly, we have made sure that these companies do not have too much debt. And as Shehzad mentioned, in times like this, when we are going through COVID times, when a lot of companies are struggling with revenues, while they have costs in terms of employee salaries to be paid, rents to be paid, electricity expenses to be paid, but there is no revenue and there is no profit. And in these times, if the companies have a lot of debt, they could get into a lot of trouble. So if you see the portfolio, we have a lot of sectors which have actually done well despite this uncertainty of the COVID times. So more than 10% of the portfolio is in the telecom space, right? So we've seen telecom sector seeing a very, very strong and resilient earnings growth environment. We have seen the burst of the telecom wars getting over, and we are seeing pricing power coming back to the sector. So now there are only 2 or 3 players left, and we believe that telecom sector should see another price hike by the end of this year, which should lead to a further boost to profitability of the remaining 2 to 3 players. Then we have another 10 to 15% of the portfolio in the pharma space. We believe healthcare is going to do very, very well. Of course, domestic pharmaceutical companies have done well. And we've also invested in companies which participate in the health insurance space. I think one big lesson that all of us have learned in these COVID times, is that we've all learned to buy health insurance. And along with that, we are also looking to, whoever already had health insurance is actually looking to buy a higher cover, because we know that the healthcare costs are only increasing. So we have invested in one of the leading health insurance companies in India. So healthcare remains a very, very strong vertical. The third sector that we are very bullish on, and that is present in the portfolio in a very big manner, is specialty chemicals. Right, as you can see, the top holding of the company of the portfolio is also in the chemical space. So this is again a sector that we believe India should do very well. So this is one sector from an export point of view that India has been doing well. India today exports $35 billion worth of chemicals. We believe in the next 6-7 years, this can be a $100 billion opportunity. In fact, this can be for India what IT sector was 10 years back, 15 years back, and this could really drive growth for India going forward. So that's the third sector that we are positive on. And the fourth one, of course, as we know, consumption sector is holding on. We all need to buy food items. We all need to buy FMCG products, and that space we believe will continue to do well, even in a tough macroeconomic environment. And finally, the fifth sector that we see doing well is the digital or the technology space. All of us have learned to stay at home, order food online, order groceries online, buy, let's say, all kind of products, even consumer durables we are now beginning to buy online. So all these things, we believe will lead to a very, very good increase or very, very good growth in digital services, and companies catering to that sector should continue to do well. So overall, if we see, we believe that these 4 or 5 sectors should continue to do very well, and a very large part of the portfolio is geared towards these sectors. Also, we believe that while the impact of COVID has continued to come down, we will still have some impact, let's say till September or October. Last time we spoke to all of you, we said that we expect 60-65% of the economy to be functional by end of June. In fact, when June ended, we were actually operating at 70-75%. Today, as we speak, economy is operating at around 85% utilization level. We saw GST collections for last month at around 90,000 crores, which is 90% of last year's collections. Electricity consumption is operating at around 96-97% of last year's levels. If you see auto sales, this month auto sales of 4-wheeler and 2-wheeler companies are down only a single digit as compared to last year. So we've seen a very, very strong revival in automobile sales. If you see, auto fuels consumption, we are seeing it coming back to around 85-90% of last year's level. So I think our economy is already operating at 85% of normal level. And by the end of September, or let's say beginning of October, we believe 90-95% of the economy will be functional, and thereafter we believe that Q3, Q4 onwards, we should see almost full economy being functional. Of course, there are some sectors which are highly discretionary in nature. So, for instance, tourism, travel, hotels, airlines, some of these sectors might take a little longer time to return to normalcy. But rest of the economy, we believe, should come back to normalcy in the next 2 to 3 months. As companies and businesses reopen again, we believe that earnings growth for these companies should also come back, and sooner or later, we believe the economy and the markets returning to normal levels. So I think with this, I will end my presentation, and maybe we can open the floor to questions.
Great, thanks, Shehzad and Varun. I think it was quite an insightful session, and yes, we do have questions, and we have time for a couple of questions. Okay. First one comes from Mr. Rajiv, who wants to understand any picks in the diagnostic space. Nothing in the diagnostic space is what this question is.
So we are fairly positive on the diagnostic space. We believe this is a sector which is highly unorganized. Only 20% of the sector is in the organized space. 80% is in the unorganized space. So we believe a lot of shift will happen from unorganized to organized. So while we do own diagnostic companies, some of the other portfolios, in this one, as you can see, we are almost fully invested with hardly any cash. As and when there is opportunity opens up, we would look at a diagnostic space, and we remain positive on it.
Great. The next one is from Mr. Rohit. What would be the turnover ratio of this portfolio?
See, we believe in buying and holding. So the churn ratio of the portfolio is fairly limited. So let's say the annual churn is 15% or less. We believe that once we buy a stock, typically we should hold it for 3 to 5 years for the full benefit of earnings compounding to play out.
Okay. So the next question is, would you be looking at any portfolio changes given the current situation and the way things pan out? Would you be looking at sectors which are expected to be emerging out of this current situation? What would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, our view is that there is, I think automobile sector was the first one to get into a downturn in 2018. Last 2 years have been seen very sluggish sales in the auto space. So that is one sector that we believe is getting better, and hopefully, if there is no more disruption, COVID gets under control, then we should have a good festive season. We should have a good Diwali, and everyone is waiting for that. So we recently added a little bit of auto. So we added Mahindra and Mahindra in the portfolio, and we might look at increasing allocation to already have Balkrishna Industries, which is around 4.5% weight. And we recently added Mahindra and Mahindra, and we could look at increasing weight in auto sector, maybe a little bit more. But other than that, there is not much change. As you can see from last time also, there is no other change in the portfolio.
Okay. The next question is on the expense ratio, the management fees. Can you just throw some light on that, on what would be the charges, the management fees and all that?
So, okay. So yes, sir, please go on.
No, so the management fee is fairly standard. It is 2.5% fixed fee, which is what it is, which is fairly standard across the industry. That's charged debited quarterly, calculated daily.
Okay, great. The next is from Mr. Jashan. The question is, both gold and equities are at all-time highs. So we know that gold rises when there is fear in the market, and gold and equity have an inverse relationship sort of. So what are your thoughts on this? And both seem to be rallying big time, and both seem to be doing extremely well. So what would be your thoughts on that?
So I think from an equity market point of view, I can say that, see, there is a very loose monetary policy in the western part of the world. We are seeing a big stimulus of around $3 trillion, which has come in from United States. Countries like Europe and China have also given their own stimulus. So the word is actually, there is a lot of liquidity which is chasing financial assets, be it equity, be it gold, be it commodities. I think there is one, we're seeing the impact of that on various asset classes. So our view, of course, is that from an equity market point of view, one needs to be more selective in terms of what stocks one is buying. Whatever portfolios one is constructing, one can build over a period of, let's say, 2 to 6 months. Therefore, we believe that spreading out your equity investments over a period of, let's say, 6 months should be fairly useful. And we have this feature of SIP, which clients can use when they're coming in, which would help them spread out their investments over a period of, let's say, 6 months. So that's one. Again, we are no experts on gold, so I would rather not comment on that. Sir, maybe you want to comment on gold.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, you're waiting for Shehzad on gold, or
Yeah, sir. Sir, do you want to comment on gold?
No, I think you pretty much mentioned that there is a great, on account of loose monetary policy, there is a great amount of fear of debasement of currencies, and that is primarily why, in the Western world, that is, and that is primarily why you see that the dollar is weakening, primarily because with this sort of stimulus and with this sort of fiscal deficits which these countries are running up, people believe that they might be safer in gold. We are also aware that from a relative, while there is, let's say, there is a fair amount of buoyancy in most markets over the world. There is a lot more buoyancy in the Western markets. I mean, that's needless to say, especially you know what's happening in the US and you know what's happening with big tech and so on and so forth. So those fears are far more pronounced in those countries relative to India. I mean, of course, gold being a global commodity, it goes up all over the world, but that's primarily the reason which it is. There's nothing much further. You have figured out from what Varun says and what the little I said before. Our focus is to buy those stocks which we believe will continue to compound their earnings growth despite difficulties, and we saying that there could be challenging times. You're buying corporate champions. You're buying those corporate champions across large, mid, small, and those champions we believe should deliver consistently over a period of time. So, while we can't predict what anything else will happen or where the economy will precisely go and where gold will go, we believe focus on what we know, and that's what we're trying to do. And this is the portfolio which will deliver that returns to our mind.
Sure. Okay, the next question is from Mr. Shah. What is the price to book and PE ratio of the portfolio? You can just throw some figures.
Yeah, so the portfolio on a FY22 basis is trading at around 20 to 23 times. So if you see, it is slightly higher than what a normal, let's say, 10-year average multiple for Nifty, which is around 17, 18 times. But we believe that that slight premium is justified, considering the fact that we have extremely high quality companies which are leaders and champions in their own respective categories. And we have seen these companies always trade at a slight premium to the market averages. And we believe that this premium will continue to be in place till the time we see very, very good earnings growth. So as we said, this portfolio delivered a 30% plus earnings growth as compared to 0% in Nifty, which shows that these companies are delivering much superior earnings growth, and therefore some kind of premium to them will sustain. I don't have the P by B price by book available handy, but we can probably share it later.
Sure, that will be fine. Okay, next question is from Mr. Ashish. What would be the difference between regular multi-cap fund on the mutual fund side and high conviction equity portfolio, which also runs a multi-cap strategy? How would you broadly distinguish?
Yeah, so I think the power of these, of this fund is in the theme. Theme, like we said, we are very clear that we are only going to be buying leaders, right? The top 5 in India and top 10 in the world, and we have consistently picked up stocks which have demonstrated that leadership. Second is this is a much more concentrated portfolio as compared to some of these large multi-cap funds, in the sense that, as you can see, some of the data is shared. So the extent of overlap with some of these very popular MF funds could be less than 50% in most cases. Also, I think since the size of a strategy is fairly small, as compared to, let's say, a 5,000 crore big multi-cap fund, our ability to pick smaller stocks and our ability to pick mid and small cap ideas is much higher. And as you can see, we have had very high allocation to some of the small and mid cap ideas, which have generated significant alpha for the portfolio. So these, we believe, are some of these inherent strengths of our portfolios compared to some of the popular multi-cap funds.
Okay. The next is what is the
And
minimum
if I'll
investment
just
amount?
add to that, Varun and Anush, sorry,
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was just before I address this question, just to add to what Varun was saying, to add to the framework which he mentioned, we have the quality framework too. So in addition to whatever the points he said, our focus on the quality and the fact that low debt equity, high ROE, and that's worked very well, especially in market downturns, because this is what really people look at. You can't, like, there's a famous statement and we have it out here, you can't go bankrupt if you don't have debt, right? It's very difficult to fail then if you don't have debt. So that's something which is in addition to which Varun said. What is the minimum ticket size? The minimum ticket size, sir, is 50 lakh rupees, which is the minimum required by SEBI. There is also another very interesting option which Varun spoke about, which is, you call it the SIP or the STP, the systematic transfer plan, wherein your money is invested over a period of time. And that, to our mind, is a very great way because, you spread your money out while you give a commitment of 50 lakh rupees. This commitment is spread over, say, a 6-month period, which is ideal because it smoothens out all the rough parts of the market and is a great way to enter the market at this point in time.
Okay, we'll take the last two questions. Just about have enough time for the last two questions. Okay, can you please advise how do you ensure that the selected stock valuations are not very high?
Yeah, okay. So see, what we do is, that's a very interesting question. I think there are two things that we need to keep in mind. One, we never let the weight of a particular stock cross 10%. So while there is no cap from SEBI's point of view, we ensure that from a risk management point of view, there is no stock which crosses 10% from a weightage point of view. And we have regularly trimmed, as in when we believe there is a stock which has run up, even before it reaches 10%. And we have trimmed stocks to ensure that with their exposure of the portfolio to that stock reduces. That's one. Second, I think valuations is also a function of growth, and we have seen that. I can maybe talk about some examples. So there is a very famous example of a, let's say a innerwear company. Let's say, right? So there is a very famous innerwear company which became a 100-bagger in the last 10 years. And what happened is the stock used to trade at 50-60 P till the time there was a growth of 25% plus. And the moment the growth started coming off, the multiple collapsed very, very sharply. So I think the important thing to remember in case of high PE stocks is that how long the hyper growth phase can continue, right? So as long as the hyper growth phase, which we typically see anything above 20% plus, is a growth rate which is much superior to the broader economy. As long as the hyper growth phase continues, the high multiples can hold. But if the growth rate comes down from 20-25% to 5%, 7%, the multiples will collapse very, very sharply. And in that case, stocks will correct. And we have seen that, even the example that I'm taking of this innerwear company, the stock corrected by more than 50% because one, the earnings growth rate came down, and second, the PE multiple collapsed. So this is something that we are acutely aware of, and we ensure that every quarter we review the earnings growth of the companies that we are holding. And the moment we see any sign of a structural breakdown in growth rates, we would definitely react to that situation.
Great. And so this particular point of the stock level restriction which you just mentioned, so in a way it would also add to the element of flexibility available with the fund manager in a PMS, wherein if the stock prices were to rise beyond 10%, there's no compulsion on him to cut the margins, and he can actually ride that wave till the time he seems fit. Would that be a right way to put it?
Yeah, see, typically, as I said, from a SEBI point of view, there is no compulsion for us to cut it. But from a risk management point of view, our endeavor is to cut it because we believe that no matter how much we like a stock, if the exposure increases beyond a certain level, the risk associated with it also increases, and the impact on the portfolio could be very high if some unforeseen event were to happen. And therefore, as a matter of internal policy, we typically trim stocks once they cross 10%.
Great. So we'll take the last question for the session, and we get this question very often, and I'm sure you gentlemen would also be facing this question a lot. So when do we look at pre-COVID levels?
On a lighter note, the way the market is going, very shortly. You're very close anyway.
I think the best way to understand valuation is that discounted cash flows, right? Let me take the example of any company. The company's valuation today is a function of the cash flows or the profit that the company will generate in the next 20-25 years, right? So typically that's how you look at it. And let's say because of COVID this year, let's say hypothetically a company loses half its profits. So it was doing 100 crores of profits, it became 50 crores. So if I use this DCF methodology, ideally the stock price should be down by only 5 to 6%, because that is the impact of a 1 year loss of profits in the lifespan of 20-25 years of a company. So as long as this is a one-time illness that hopefully with all the human effort and so many people working on vaccines and all, we can control it in the next few months. We don't think the impact of COVID should be beyond a certain, let's say 6, 7, 8 months of disruption, and then world can move on to normalcy. So if that were to happen, I think COVID should soon be behind us, and of course some sectors will remain disrupted, but overall economy and overall stock markets should not be very significantly impacted by it. So as such, I think this will be linked to news flow around COVID. For an investor point of view, one has to look at it as a one-time disruption, and therefore making an investment now, and anybody who has done investment in the last 3 months is definitely reaping the benefits of that, right? We have seen how quickly the sentiments can change and how quickly the markets can come back. Our favorite example is on 23rd of March, when we had 300 cases and 20 deaths. Markets was at 7,500, because at that day everyone was worried about what is going to happen, even though there were hardly any cases. And today, when we have, let's say, 19 lakh cases, markets is much more relaxed, because we already know that this will get controlled sooner or later. So markets are future looking in nature. Markets are always looking forward, and our sense is, as long as there is visibility that this crisis will be behind us, in a matter of few months, I think there is not much to worry about going forward.
Okay, just one last question before we close the session. An interesting question from Mr. Himanshu. Can't we increase the number of scripts and reduce the risk of volatility along with better risk management, since few stocks are having 5% and above concentration?
Yeah, see, our thinking on this. Sorry, sir. Please go on.
Go on. No, you go on.
Yeah, Varun, I think he's asked you to go ahead.
Okay, so our thinking on this is empirically, we have seen a portfolio of 20-25 stocks is a good mix of concentration as well as risk management. So while I do not have a particular theory, which backs this, but intuitively what we have seen from our experience of last, 10-15 years is that when you have 5 to 6% weightage of a particular stock in the portfolio, it helps you. It becomes meaningful in the sense that if the stock were to double, it will have a meaningful impact on the portfolio, and at the same time, the risk does not become disproportionately high. If I were to have, let's say, a 2% weight of a stock in a portfolio, even if it doubles, the impact on the portfolio is fairly limited. So while there is no science behind it, but intuitively, what we have seen is that 20-25 stocks is a good mix of concentration and risk management, and we would probably stick to it.
And I just add, Himanshu, it adds to the discipline, because when you know that it's like cricket team, now I can only get in our cricket team, we can only get, say, 20 stocks, 22 stocks in. Then we are forced to seek the best stocks. We're forced to, choose one over the other. And in many ways, that really helps because you think that much more. Instead of saying, ठीक है, थोड़ा ये इनका भी ले लो, थोड़ा ये भी ले लीजिएगा, थोड़ा वो भी ले लीजिएगा. It's like I have to choose the very best. So suppose you are choosing the very best team of commandos, you are choosing the very best cricket team, you are forced to choose that. And that forced choosing of your 22, 23 stocks, and even as per portfolio theory, like Varun was saying, that gives you adequate diversification. We look at our numbers too. We are actually, we've displayed less volatility than the we don't have it right here, but we can share it with you. If you look at a standard deviation, you look at a beta, we lower than that of the benchmark. So this has worked reasonably well for us, and we think this is just right. It's it gives you the adequate concentration, which, as Varun mentioned, is very, very important. At the same time, enough of diversification.
Great, thank you so much for that. I think it was quite insightful. So we'll have to come to the end of this session. Thank you, dear investors, for sharing your afternoon with us. We do hope you found this session insightful. Should you have any more queries, please get in touch with your relationship managers. We will have those queries addressed on priority by the fund management team, by the leadership team at Nippon. Thank you, Shehzad sir and Varun, for a wonderful session for our investors as always, and we will keep having such sessions and engage with our investors. Thanks everybody once
Thank
again.
you. Thank you so much, Ganesh. Thank you for being wonderful listeners, and Ganesh and HDFC Securities, thank you for being a wonderful host. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.